Hey there, Jim Johnson from Accent Help here. And I want to throw some terms at you that I think will be helpful for you for thinking about how to learn accents as an actor. So, two that I want to start with are kind of obvious, and yet they may not be obvious. One of them is accent, and the other one is dialect. So, it's very common for Americans, I think, especially to go, well, an accent is a foreign language speaker, and a dialect is when you're speaking your own language. But there's another way that this is commonly defined, especially more so by, say, like linguists in England, which is that an accent is the way that you speak, while a dialect is the wording, like the phrasing that you'll use. The fact that you say soda versus pop or a Coke or something like that would be a dialectical element, while the accent would be, do you say Coke or do you say Coke? So those sound differences, that's accent, and that's most of what my work is. Another word that's kind of like that that I want to throw at you is called idiolect. So the idiolect is the way that an individual speaks. So really, anytime that I'm doing an accent breakdown, when I'm listening to a number of recordings of someone, say from New Orleans, I'm going to be working my way through a bunch of recordings, and there will be differences between individuals' idiolects, but the commonalities that they have, that starts to add up to be the breakdown that helps me to understand the accent. What are those sounds that exist in the way that that person speaks? What is the overall sense of intonation, the common musicality? What is the sense of the mouth placement for that? What is the muscularity that's involved in this? So those are things that I basically try to take from idiolect into the accent overall. Cool. Three more terms that are a little bit scary that I want to throw at you because I think they're genuinely useful. It's acrylect, basilect, and then mesolect. Okay, so acrylect. Acrylect is very commonly thought of as like the no accent. What is the desirable way of speaking? So in the US, I like to call it generic, and it's very common for people who have no accent, sort of along the line of the way that I oftentimes speak, to have no accent. That is this sort of what I like to call generican, and that is the accent that people feel like they want to shoot for, while a basilect is more along the line of the working class way of speaking in a local area. So even though there's most elements of my speech that are kind of generic, and if you get me to say certain words like milk, I don't tend to say milk. I tend to say milk because I'm from Iowa. That's why. I don't tend to say south mouth. I tend to say south mouth. Both. BOTH has an L in there in my speech. And when I used to work at the Newell, Iowa swimming pool, we'd answer the phone, no pull, no pull, because those are elements of my basilect, right? What you end up getting, and this is something that I just talked about recently in that video about the Today Show interview, is about the fact that a lot of people are landing in the land of Mazlect. So Mazlect is in that place in between Acrylect and Basilect. So Basilect being the more working class, localized, and there's more things other than just exactly where you're from. There can be elements that are about your race, your religion. There are all kinds of things that can influence it. But if you think about sort of like, that really strong New York sort of accent, something along that, like a real Brooklyn sort of sound, something like that, that might be considered more of a basilect. And then somebody who's from there, but their accent has become a little bit more neutralized, but you can still hear that they say all of these instead of saying all of these. They are probably landing in that mesolect area because they've still got some of those elements of New York City, but it's become a little bit mellowed out. It's sort of disguised in the guise of generic. So I think those are all some terms that you don't need to necessarily remember them, but I think conceptually they're really helpful as you're working on accents for all kinds of different projects. So if you're an actor who's working on accents, you can check out over 50 different sets of accent materials that'll guide you through learning an accent at accenthelp.com.